What is up, Miracle Fighters, and welcome back to the Team Miracle 4 channel. It's been a while since we've done V Premium content, as we've been doing quite a bit of D standard gameplays this past few weeks. So today I decided to do something a little different. I'm going to be going through my current Spike Brothers Dudley Emperor deck list, and it'll be for the pure Dudley version that you guys can build out of Clan Collection volumes 1 and 2. Right, that's just very recently dropped in English. So Clan Collection, as I've mentioned, has recently dropped in English, and you bet we've been having a lot of fun with the new cards. Because every clan got support, there's so many new builds to play, especially since we do play quite a number of decks. One deck that I've been playing quite a bit for these few weeks will be this Dudley Emperor deck. The Demonic Lord Dudley Emperor, whom I've had a long history with, has finally returned alongside Dudley Lucifer to make a cohesive pure Dudley Emperor deck that you guys can play in V Premium. The overall game plan of Dudleys is to multi-attack for high numbers and just charge your way through the opponent's defenses. Let's begin with the deck. So my starter is Mecha Trainer. You can play whatever starter you want. Running Sniper, Mecha Trainer, doesn't really matter. Right. First up, for the grade 3s, I am playing 4 copies of the main card, Demonic Lord Dudley Emperor. Dudley Emperor's effect is, when he attacks or when it is rolled upon, you may counterblast 1 to search your deck for up to 1 grade 2 or greater Dudley card from your deck, call it to an open rear, and shuffle your deck. Your Vanguard, which is Dudley Emperor himself, also gets plus 10,000 power until the end of turn. This ability is what allows you to set off your multi-attacks. Being able to tutor out any grade 2 or greater Dudley means you can search directly for key pieces like Lucifer or Davy. So these two cards, I'll be explaining more about them later on. Getting plus 10k for Dudley Emperor's attack also makes guarding harder for your opponent, since your opponent cannot easily guard for like a 2 to pass with a trigger. This is quite surprising since Spike Brothers tend to give power to their rear guards, not really the Vanguard, so having Emperor getting power to hit over defensives definitely feels great. However, this skill does have a few restrictions. Firstly, you have to call Dudleys. Secondly, they also have to be grade 2 or greater. And last but not least, you must have an open rearguard circle for your for you to be able to call your Dudleys too. This means that you need to be able to get rid of your unit somehow if you want to maximize its ability, and it also makes the deck pretty xenophobic, like you have to run quite a bit of Dudley cards. But that's fine given Clan Collection is all about Dudleys, and Emperor's second effect also helps with the open rearguard circle restriction. Dudley Emperor's second effect is, when a rearguard attacks, if Dudley Emperor is on your field, regardless of Vanguard Circle or on Rearguard Circle, the attacking rearguard gets plus 5,000 power. At the end of that battle, put that rearguard on the bottom of the deck. In essence, this ability gives your attacking units the sort of charge keyword in exchange for power. Dudley Emperor hence enables his own first effect by sending all attacking rearguards to bottom after their attack to open up circles for you to superior call and extend attacks with his first effect. I personally really love that Dudley Emperor's first ability is able to proc when he's ridden upon. Being able to generate field when you sort of ride on top of Dudley Emperor the following turn is also good. Emperor's ability activating on rearguard circle means that there's also another way to use Emperor, which is to call your Emperors to rearguard circle so that your attacking units could get 10k or even 15k additional attack power depending on how many Dudley Emperors you have on the field. If Dudley Emperors on your Vanguard circle, your attacking unit gets 5k, but if you have like 2 or more, you can easily get 10 to 15k, which is actually pretty decent. One strategy that I think could be useful for this deck, especially if you have a surplus of attackers, is to place 1 or 2 Dudley Emperors in the back row. This way they don't return after attacking, but can continue to power up your attacking units for this turn and for the following turns. Overall, Dudley Emperor really reminds me of a combination of OG Bad and Dragger and OG Dudley Emperor, or even the Bloody Ogre Legion. OG Bad and Dragger's Break Right powers up your rearguard and sends it back to deck after attacking, so that you have open circles for OG Dudley Emperor to call to. Having both aspects of one of Spike Brothers' OG playstyle meshed into one card in this V Premium Dudley Emperor is a really neat concept. You know, the more I look at this effect, the more I get reminded of the Bloody Ogre Legion as well, right? This second effect is pretty much a Bloody Ogre Legion, except that instead of Legion, the restriction is your Vanguard must be a Dudley, which, this deck is full of Dudleys, right? So yeah, Dudley Emperor is basically the main playmaker of the deck, and since you absolutely want to see him and ride into him as the main Vanguard, we are playing 4 copies of him. Right, maxed out. On V Premium, we only have 2 types of Dudley Grade 3s. So the first one is Dudley Emperor, and the other one is Dudley Lucifer, who we are playing 4 copies of. So the Monilord Dudley Lucifer has 2 effects, one on Vanguard Circle and one on Rearguard Circle. The Vanguard Circle effect is when he attacks, counterblast 1 and put a Rearguard into your soul. You can draw a card, call up to 1 Dudley from your hand to Rearguard Circle, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, that called unit gets plus 10,000 power until the end of turn. Since Emperor is our main Vanguard and usually the one you want to ride into, this effect of Lucifer shouldn't appear too much in games. However, if you misride into him, at least, you still have a pretty neat Vanguard skill that opens up multi-attacking combos as well. Especially now that we have more Dudley targets, having to call a card with Dudley is coming from a hand to Rearguard Circle may not be that difficult as compared to the past. Dudley Lucifer, however, is in his deck mainly for his Rearguard effect, which is when he's placed by your card's ability, you can Soul Blast 1 to countercharge 1. With the rest of the deck plus Emperor, the deck can consume quite a bit of counterblast resource, as we'll see later on. On average, you will need at least 2 face-up counterblasts per turn from turn 3 onwards if you want to be able to reach your if you want to max out your chances of the 5 attack combo. So having a counter charge in this deck can be very helpful. So yep, we are playing the 4 copies of Dudley Lucifer as a backup boss and as a utility card in his deck alongside Dudley Emperor for our grade 3 slots. Moving on to grade 2s, I am playing 4 copies of our main right target and combo piece, which is Dudley Davy. Dudley Davy is a fantastic support for the deck. His on-place ability activates on Vanguard Circle and Rearguard Circle and allows you to call a non-grade 2 Dudley from the deck for the cost of a counterblast. This prevents him from calling himself and filling the field too easily, but is great for either bringing out more Emperors to the field for power or Lucifer for countercharge. Since you can only call non-grade 2s, you can also call grade 1s, right? It's like Daisy, one of our new cards that I'll talk about later on, which is also part of the 5 attack combo that you can do in this deck. Davy is arguably the most important piece of in the 5 attack combo because what you can do is you can search him out using Emperor's effect and use Davy to search out another attacker. As long as you target Davy for Emperor's effect, you will always be able to make your 5th attack. Davy also has a neat second ability, which is when a force marker is placed on his circle, or rather is put on its circle, you may soul charge 1. This soul charge is useful for cards like Lucifer, which uses the soul to countercharge, and is also useful for cards like Daisy, the grey one that I showed earlier, which uses the soul to superior call. Since this effect also includes moving the marker, and not just when you acquire a gift, it can also work quite well with a couple of other cards that we will see soon in the deck. So yep, we are playing 4 copies of Dudley Davy as the most important grade 2 for the deck. Davy can also allow for some pretty terrifying turn 2 attacks, right? Because you can actually make 3 attacks using Davy and Daisy. So all you have to do is to guarantee a Davy in a starting hand, and you will almost always be able to make 3 attacks on your grade 2 turn, which allows you to push for damage so that killing your opponents with the Dudley Emperor combo is easier. So yeah, Davy is very important. For our next grade 2, we have the other Dudley grade 2, Dudley Mason. So Old Boy Mason has returned to V Premium, and many players do have mixed feelings over this card, and I understand why. But first have a look at his effect. So 2 effects. The first is on Rearguard Circle, when his attack hits, if your Vanguard is a Dudley, counterblast 1 and put Mason on the bottom of the deck to call a non-grade 2 card from a hand with Dudley and his card name to a Rearguard Circle. And his second effect is when he returns back to the deck, either through his own effect or through Dudley Emperor's effect, you can choose one of the units and you have to move all force markers on your circles to that unit's circle. Basically, Dudley Mason is the deck's on-hit pressure and attack extender. Having on-hit pressure on a potentially hard-hitting body, depending on how many force markers, depending on how many Dudley Emperors you have on the field, can be really fun, as you'll see your opponents try their best to guard your Dudley Mason. Dudley Mason is also especially scary if he's the first attack of the turn, because you can make your opponents drop more cards for guarding and reduces the chances of them checking defensives for your attacks. Being able to pass force markers around is also an added bonus and makes up for the lack of bull spike in his deck. I'm glad Bushrock kept that aspect of spikes in Dudleys and makes it such that we can, if we choose force 2, we can at least use that force 2 twice in a turn if you have Mason on the field. Because this deck doesn't play Rising Nova, right, we have no gift acceleration nor both force 1 and 2, so being able to move force markers around can allow us to maximize the usage of the gift by utilizing it more than once per turn. My main gripe with Dudley Mason is that it makes you call from hand. So the old Mason uses hand as a fuel, but it can search out anything from the deck to call out. And it also doesn't remove itself like Mason, but that doesn't really matter since now Emperor already removes your attackers. But having to call from hand is, I think, too much for a deck that doesn't already draw much and may not have the hand to sustain. If his ability allows you to draw and then call a Dudley from a hand to rearguard circle, I think it will be much better than what we currently get. But yeah, needing to minus yourself to make an extra attack, I think may not be that worth it, depending on the situation. Still, Dudley Mason does synergize very well with Emperor, and I guess just being a Dudley does make him pretty useful in the deck, because he still can be a target for your grade 3s like Lucifer and Emperor. Dudley Mason I wouldn't say is that bad as what some players might say about him. It's not really vanilla. I know his on-hit effect may rarely work, but being able to pass force markers around is still kind of a big deal, especially for Dudleys. So yeah, I guess you can treat that as his main effect. Right, so yep, we only play 2 copies of him because you don't really need too many copies of him, right? And I think 2 works just fine for me. For our remaining grade 2s, I am playing 2 copies of the Adopts Perm Rona and 3 copies of Bridge Spurt. So let's have a look at Rona's ability first. So Rona's ability is, on plays on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, counter blast 1, you can search your deck for up to 1 grade 3 card, call it to Rearguard and shuffle your deck. And on Rearguard Circle, if you have a grade 3 unit in the same column as Rona gets the ability to boost. Rona is useful in this deck to pull out Emperors from the deck to power up your attackers. Having an Emperor as Vanguard and calling Rona to get another Emperor on the field, so that you have 2 or more Emperors, means that your attackers are going to be getting at least 10,000 power when they attack. Not to mention, Rona also boosts for 10k behind the Vanguard or any other grade 3, allowing you to hit magic numbers more easily, and once again make guarding much harder. Rona is a solid card, but since it competes with Emperor and Davy for counterblast, I'm not playing that many copies of her. I'm playing 2 copies. I think 2 copies works just fine. She's also a decent right target if you don't write into Davy, because you can then use her to just bring out either Emperor or Lucifer, depending on which one you want, right? Lucifer can countercharge so that it's a free +1, but if you bring out Emperor, you may be able to rush the opponent down as well. So yeah, 2 copies of Rona, solid card. And then our last grade 2, I'm playing 3 copies of Bridge Spurt. So previously I was playing 2 Bridge Spurt and 3 Masons, but now that I've upped Bridge Spurt more, I think I quite like him in this deck. So Bridge Spurt's effect is, when he attacks a Vanguard, if it's on Rearguard Circle, you can put a normal unit from a drop zone on the bottom of your deck for the cost. And until the end of Bridge Spurt's battle, your opponent's units must intercept as much as possible. At the end of that battle, Bridge Spurt goes into the soul and you draw a card. There are a few reasons why Bridge Spurt is super good in this deck. Bridge Spurt not only can mess up the opponent's guarding plans, but also by forcing intercepts is a kind of field removal for this deck. I've used this card to force units like Sweeper Acrocanto into the drop zone, often use it to make Aqua Force or Nova Grappler lose their important grade 2 units. If your opponent's deck has, cards that make the back row able to intercept, Bridge Spurt can just wipe out, a whole bunch of cards on the opponent's field at once. Also, against the XL matchup, if your opponents have a lot of grade 2s on the XL circle, 1 Bridge Spurt is all it takes to just kill all of them straight up. Spurt also synergizes well with Emperor, as instead of being sent to the bottom of the deck, you could proc his skill to move into the soul to draw you a card first. This basically works on the logic that if your unit is being sent away at the end of the battle, you might as well, convert that unit into, resources like soul and head, for the case of Bridge Spurt. In his deck, we take any card draw that we can because, you know, the deck does minus quite a bit from taking out all his attackers after they attack. So being able to build up your hand size after offensive pushes can help you sustain in the long run. Lastly, Bridge Spurt also allows you to recycle important Dudley units from the drop zone back to deck. So let's say you see too many Emperors or Davies in the early game and they end up in the drop zone, you can just use Bridge Spurt to recycle them back into the deck so that you can call them back out with Emperor's effect. So yeah, Bridge Spurt is a very nice card for the Dudley deck. And I'm playing 3 copies of it. So with that, that's basically all the grade 2s that we have. 11 grade 2s with the main right target being Davy, Rona being an alternate right target. Now let's move on to our grade 1s. We're starting off first with the best right target for the grade 1s for our deck, and that is Dudley William. William's effect is when rolled upon, you may call it to rearguard circle, and at the end of the battle that it boosted, you may move it into the soul to pass all force markers from one circle to another. Once again, like Dudley Mason, we embrace marker movement in this deck because moving force markers can be very scary with our multi-attacks, and it's also what makes Spike Brothers special and unique from the other force clans. William going into the soul also adds to our soul resource, and it also works well with Dudley Davy. Dudley Davy soul charges when a force marker is moved to it, so cards like William and Mason can give you double the amount of soul if you pass the force marker to Davy. So yeah, William is a solid generic card, and I max him out at 4 copies because why not? He gives you a +1 on right, and just being able to pass force markers is just great. So that's 4 copies of him. And then for our next and our final Dudley in the deck, we play 4 copies of Dudley Daisy. So this is a new card that came out with Dudley Emperor. So her effect is when placed on rearguard circle by the ability of a card with Dudley in its card name. Basically, when she's superior called by a Dudley, you can Soul Blast 1 to call a grade 3 Dudley card from the deck to an open rearguard circle. Then at the end of the turn, put both Daisy and the called grade 3 to the bottom of the deck. Daisy is the final piece in the 5 attack combo that I've been making reference to throughout the video, and Daisy works very well, extremely well in this deck, and is really what completes up the deck. Daisy's skill also procs off all of the superior calling that the other Dudleys do, so Lucifer, Davy and Mason both can activate Daisy's effect. The main combo of using Daisy in this deck is the 5 attack combo. Now that you guys already know most of the deck, I can finally show off the combo. So how the combo works is, let's say you have this field. So I'm going to call Dudley Mason to that force marker there, Bridge Spurt and Verdi. So Verdi's on place effect allows me to look at the top 5 cards of the deck. You grab whatever grade 3. So this is just a demonstration, right? It's not the best setup, but I just want to show you guys how, you know, the 5 attack combo is carried out. So here I get a Dudley Emperor from the top 5 cards of the deck, right? So I'll be adding it to my hand, and also I'll be calling it as well. And then I'll discard a card from my hand, doesn't matter what card. So now I have this setup. I'm going to be attacking with Mason first. So Mason, at the end of the battle they attacked, goes to the bottom, and I can pass the force marker. So just like Mason was attacking for 10 plus 10, 20,000. Now Bridge Spurt will attack now with the boost from William. So this is 18, plus the 2 Dudley Emperor's effect is another 10,000 added. So here I use Bridge Spurt's effect to put Lucifer from the drop zone to the bottom of the deck, so recycling your Dudleys, and I will force the opponent to intercept. End of battle, moves into soul, I draw 1 card, so that's an increase in my hand size. William's effect, move into soul, and move the force marker to Dudley Emperor. So here force 1 or force 2 both works. I think force 2 can also be pretty good. Alright, so now I'm going to activate Dudley Emperor's effect, counterblast 1 when it attacks, search the deck for 1 grade 2 or greater Dudley and superior call it. So I'm going to call out Dudley Davy. So this is my 3rd attack already, right? Emperor is attacking for the 3rd time this turn. Okay, so on plays Davy's effect activates, counterblast 1, search the deck for a non-grade 2 Dudley. So here I'm going to be searching out a Daisy. So here I can also search out any grade 3 or grade 1 to put in the front row, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use Daisy's effect to Soul Blast 1 to pull out a grade 3. So this is better than using Davy to directly search for the grade 3 because Davy will get the boost from Daisy. An 8k boost is better than no boost, and 8k boost also allows you to hit magic numbers as well. So here I can either go Lucifer or Emperor. Lucifer if I want to countercharge, but I'm going to go for Emperor for the higher power. So now I have 3 Emperors on the field. My rearguards are going to be attacking for plus 15k. Here I check a crit. Sometimes you do check crit, sometimes you don't. Doesn't really matter. But the main thing is that now you'll be able to make 5 attacks with the deck. This is basically how the 5 attack combo works. So Davy will now be attacking for 18 plus 15, 33 and goes to the bottom at the end of the battle. The last Dudley Emperor is attacking for 13 plus 15, 28. All pretty big numbers, so Force 2 works as well. So yep, that's basically it for the 5 attack combo. Let's jump back to the deck profile. Even though Daisy forces the called unit back to the deck, it doesn't really matter since having Emperor as the Vanguard means that they'll be going back anyways. The only thing that I don't particularly like about Daisy is that she also has to put herself back into the deck. So that's kind of sad because it means that I will have less cards to work with next turn, and it also minuses quite a bit from my field. But of course, Daisy is still a very good card. Using Soul as a cost instead of Counterblast means that she doesn't fight for Counterblast. She doesn't fight for CB with most of the Grade 2s and Emperor. Soul is a much easier resource to get in this deck, right? Daisy also works with both boss units, not just Emperor, because Lucifer can also call Daisy, and Daisy can then, from her own effect, extend 1 more Grade 3 out onto the field. Either Emperor for more power, or just any other Grade 3 just to make 1 more attack. Overall, I like Daisy a lot, and she's being played at 4 copies in this deck. As for our last Grade 1s, they're just the basic Grade 3 Searcher, Acrobat Verdi, which is also maxed out at 4, and 2 copies of Ambush Dexter to round up the normal units for the deck. So Verdi is just the basic Grade 3 Searcher that every clan has. This is Spike Brothers 1. Getting Grade 3s is very important in this deck, especially getting your Dudley Emperors, which are your main right targets. In this deck, you really do want to see as many Emperors as possible. The best is if you see all 4 of them, because that means that you're giving a huge buff, a huge power up to your attackers that turn, right? Especially if you have 3 Dudley Emperors in the back, all your attackers will be getting, plus 20k, which is greater than any other booster can provide. So even if they can't boost, just having them exist on the field is kind of insane already. So yeah, Verdi is very important, especially guaranteeing you that Dudley Emperor ride that this deck really wants. This deck also doesn't generate extra force markers, so rewriting is our only way to get multiple force markers. So having Verdi to dig out Grade 3s from the deck to rewrite is also good. As for Verdi's passive plus 5k attack, it activates if a rearguard was called by a card's ability this turn. At every stage in the game, you will be calling cards by your card's ability. You'll be superior calling basically. So Verdi is pretty much a constant 13k in this deck, which is fantastic. So 13k means that he can hit unboosted. He's also a great booster, especially towards your Grade 2s, by being able to create magic numbers and stuff like that. So Verdi is a solid card, and I will say I will max him up at 4 copies in this deck. As for our last Grade 1, that's Ambush Dexter. This is a Rising Nova piece that is also used very well in this deck, just like Rona. So Dexter has 2 effects. The first is an on-plays on Vanguard Circle effect. You can discard a card from your hand and draw a card. So this is basically card cycling. This skill is best used if you're going second and you ride into Ambush Dexter, because you can then discard the quick shield that you get from going second to draw an extra card from the deck. Since the quick shield is just a complementary card, complementary 5k shield, and every other card in this deck is pretty much better than a quick shield, this is essentially a very good plus. However, Dexter's main highlight is his second effect. On place on Rearguard Circle, you may counterblast 1 and put a Grade 2 or greater Rearguard into your Soul. If you do, you can call 2 cards from the deck with the same grade as the card that you put into Soul with this effect. This means that if you chuck a Grade 2 into Soul, you can pull out 2 Grade 2s from the deck. Chuck a Grade 3 and you can pull out 2 Grade 3s. I don't know about you guys, but this sounds pretty insane to me. Converting 1 Rearguard to 2 Rearguards plus a Soul for just 1 Counterblast is very worth it, and allows you to offset the big minus to the bot that the deck can experience throughout the game. Ambush Dexter is great for getting out 2 Emperors straight up from the deck to give all attackers at least 10 or even 15k if you're sitting on a Vanguard Emperor as well. If not, being able to pull out any Grade 2 straight from the deck, especially cards like Bridge Split if you need it, or Davy to, you know, fill up your field even more sounds pretty well to me too. There's so many ways to use Dexter since he doesn't have to call same named units, so a bunch of combinations can work as long as they are within the same grade. All in all, Dexter is a solid grade 1 to round up the deck and gives the deck more oomph in certain situations. In fact, now with Hill Guardians, Dexter also becomes even more versatile. I know you guys have experienced this because I personally have many times, and that is starting the turn by drawing into a Hill trigger. However, because now your Hill triggers are likely your Hill Guardians, Dexter can actually convert these grade 3 Hill Guardians into powerful grade 3 units from the deck because they are all grade 3s, right? So yeah, that's just one pretty neat interaction that you can do with Dexters and the new grade 3 Hill Guardians. Pretty interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much all the grade 1s. We can actually move on to the grade 0s now. Alright, so for this deck, the trigger lineup is currently still a work in progress. I'm still messing around with the trigger lineup quite a bit. But for now, what I've settled on is the 7 critical triggers, 5 draw triggers, and 4 heal triggers. Okay, so let me just explain a bit. So why 7 crits and 5 draws? Dudleys do suffer from a lack of hand, so additional draws to increase hand size and draw into your attacking pieces are needed. However, I've had many situations where I end up with too many 5k cards in hand, especially back then when I played like 6 to 7 draw triggers for this deck, or situations where if I checked the crit, I would likely have won that game. So I decided to go for a more even split, 6-6. It worked fine, but when I went to 7-5, but I think I enjoyed it better with 7-5 because of the higher chances of checking critical triggers. So yeah, 7 crits and 5 draws I think is the way to go. You do need a draw PGs, so that's already a guaranteed 4 slots for the draws. I play 1 additional draw for a higher chance of checking draws, very good defensively, and 7 crits because critting opponent is still the way to win. Especially with this deck's high power, being able to, check some crits, especially in the early game, to push your opponents to high damage can really make your final few turns very, very lethal. Now that we don't have Rising Nova to give us both Force 1 and 2, we will take any amount of power and any crits that we can get. So yeah, I'm playing 7 crits, 5 draws. You guys can go ahead and play 8 crits, 4 draws because crits do have the additional, do have like much higher guard value, but sometimes you just really want more cards in your hand to call for attacking purposes and stuff like that. So draws can help as well. As for the heal triggers, there's some explaining here to do. I'm playing currently 2 Heal Guardians and 2 of the regular 20k guard heal triggers. As I mentioned, this is a work in progress. I've played 4 Heal Guardians, 4 regular heals, and a mix just like that. I would say that Heal Guardians are definitely needed for Dudleys to allow us to survive past the opponents, past any potential, first grade 3 turn kill decks. So I would say the deck will need at least 2 Heal Guardians. 4 regular heals is a no-no because of how impactful the Heal Guardians can be. So maximum I would say I'll only play 2 regular heals if you want to. Since as I've mentioned, the deck does suffer from a lack of hand size. So having higher shield value like 20k guards can make quite a big difference in terms of guarding. As of now, I'm kind of not sure whether to go all in with the Heal Guardians or play an even mix because 20k shields have saved my life quite a couple of times, but so has the Heal Guardian. So it really is up to you guys how you guys want to split this heal triggers, whether you want to go all in Heal Guardians or a mix. I'll say Heal Guardians they have an advantage of being able to attack for higher numbers, right? And being a grade 3 means it also synergizes with Ambush Dexter and also is searchable out with the grade 3 searcher in the early game if you want to. But yeah, personally I'm playing a mix. More testing is needed definitely to see which one really works with the deck. But for now, it's like that. This is my trigger lineup: 7 crits, 5 draws, and 4 heals. For the gifts, Force 1 and Force 2 are both possible choices. Because now you don't have Rising Nova to give both gifts, you have to be very careful when selecting your gifts, right? If your opponent is at an even amount of damage, like 2 or 4 damage, and you have multiple Emperors, or you have the ability to get out multiple Emperors, I would say go for Force 2, because let's say they're on 2 damage, they can only take 1 attack before they cannot take for the rest of your attacks. If they're on 4 damage, it's a no-brainer. Most of the time it's going to be Force 2, because they won't be able to take because you can guarantee that some of your attacks won't be taken by the opponent, and especially if you have your force movers like your Dudley Williams and Dudley Masons, having Force 2 when your opponent is at 4 damage can be kind of scary, right? But if you feel like the game may last a bit longer, or if you think you're going to be rewriting quite a couple of times, and you feel like you may not be able to make that high numbered columns because you don't have multiple Emperors on the field, sometimes going Force 1 may actually be the better choice. There is no merit to Force 2 if your attacks are like puny 18k or like 15k. Sometimes having Force 1 with 5 attacks is really what will make the opponent unable to guard and just take all of those 1 crit attacks. So yeah, this deck is not a clear-cut Force 1 or Force 2 deck. It takes quite a while to get to know the deck, and after you play the deck long enough, it should be easier to gauge which gift to go into depending on your field setup, depending on the deck that your opponent is playing, the number of cards in their hand and stuff like that. So yeah, Force 1 and Force 2 are both possible gift choices that you can go into. With that, that's basically my take on the Dudley Emperor Spike Brothers deck from Clan Collection. The deck is a full-on aggro deck with the ability to push as early as turn 2. If I'm going second and having first attack, highly likely I can push to 3 or even 4 by turn 3. This deck wants to close games as soon as possible, as fast as possible, because we cannot last a long game. Because every turn will be ending with nothing on the field. It is not impossible for this deck to steal games even before the opponent rides to grade 3 if you are going first, because of how absurd the numbers sometimes can be if you see the right cards and if your opponents don't check into defensive triggers. Emperor's consistent 5 attacks as long as you ride into him is pretty scary, especially since he can go off as early as turn 3. And if your opponent does not have the defenses needed, this deck can steamroll your opponent straight away. As this deck is able to consistently clear away your attackers and sometimes even your back row, you don't really have to worry that much in the control matchup, like against maybe Link Joker, or even the Dragon Empire clans like Kagero and Narukami, because they probably won't have much targets on your field to retire or bind or lock. So I'll say this deck is not as affected by the control decks, right? I've already gone through the deck and I really hope my explanations make sense. The deck really is a sum of its parts kind of deck where I cannot go through each card individually because every single card plays a role into ensuring you have the best chance to rush and beat down the opponent. Cards have a lot of synergy with each other, how cool some of those synergies are, and how each card works pretty well with each other. One advice I would give when you're playing the deck is do not be afraid of putting Emperors in the 2 rearguard circle in the back row. The additional power really does make a difference, and even though Emperor cannot boost, but if you have like multiple Emperors in the back row, like maybe 2 and 1 Vanguard, having all your attackers get 15k is already more than makes up for the lack of boosters, right? Because don't forget, Emperor powers up every attacker that you have for that turn, so it's really better than a booster. A booster can only boost for 1 turn, but Emperor just gives passive power and allows the deck to hit actually pretty easily over defensive triggers. Now before I go, here are some alternatives you guys might want to consider for the deck. You guys might want to consider Rising Nova. Yes, so I have seen Dudley decks where they splash in a couple of Rising Novas for the first right double gift potential. Gift acceleration is a good thing, and Lucifer is still a grade 3 that can be copied with Rising Nova if you play Rising Nova in the deck. It's just that Emperor is super restricted, and sometimes rushing from the get-go with 5 attacks on first grade 3 turn wins games more than trying to, go into Nova first and then go into Emperor next turn. If you play Rising Nova in the deck and you don't draw him early, he becomes a dead card later on, and the deck is already too packed to play cards that can become dead cards later on, right? That's the main reason I don't play Rising Nova. Unless I can find a way to guarantee him as the first right, then maybe I'll play him, but for now, not really. But yeah, if you guys don't mind finding space and don't mind finding the correct balance in the deck, Dudleys with Rising Nova can actually become pretty lethal, since you're getting both Force 1 and 2 making all of attacks higher power and higher critical. So yeah, Rising Nova does have its uses. I just think the deck is a bit too clogged to, include Rising Novas. I think pure Dudleys is fine, right? But yeah, this is a possible card that you guys might consider playing. The other one would be Juggernaut Maximum. So Juggernaut Maximum has popped up a couple of times in discussions about this deck, mainly because Juggernaut with Emperor is a minimum 28k attack when on the turn that Maximum was placed. If you open with the right cards and have enough resources, on turn 2 you could even tutor Juggernaut with Rona, and Emperor with Davy, as well as Daisy, to make one of the most insane V premium grade 2 turns. You can make a 38k, 18k, and 18k column. So yep, that sounds pretty scary, but I really don't have the space in this deck. But if you guys can find space, Juggernaut Maximum is a possible card that you guys can play, like maybe 2 off right in the deck for that early grade 2 rush, and also maximum build soul. So yeah. As for grade 2s, I would say the promo Gunburst Linebacker is a possible option as well. Gunburst Linebacker has the ability to attack from the back row if it's in the same column as a grade 3, and that means that you can go above the 5 attack combo of the deck to 6 or even more. Gunburst Linebacker can also power himself up, but it's kind of too costly for the deck. If he's played in this deck, I would say his main purpose is to be able to attack from the back row, just so you can get more attackers, and more attackers means that Emperor skill will activate on Gunburst Linebacker as well. This one, I admit, sounds very tempting, and I haven't really tried it enough to say how effective it actually is. So yeah, it's something I will be trying out more soon. But yeah, Gunburst Linebacker is a pretty interesting option. If he's ever going to be played in this deck, the only worry that I have is how to get him, because he's quite an elusive promo here, right? But yeah, those are the possible alternatives you guys might consider. All in all, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. Dudleys have a lot of potential, especially with the new support for them coming up in the next clan collection with Dudley Emperor Reverse, giving maybe the deck a bit more boost, or maybe even, creating a whole new Dudley deck from that set. I'm looking forward to what the new Dudley Emperor Reverse will do in Clan Collection Volume 5 and 6. Oh, sorry, 3 and 4. Yeah, right, given, the Dudley Emperor Reverse's blurb of locking rearguards, which kind of goes against our open rearguard playstyle for now. But yeah, for now you just see me enjoying this Dudley Emperor deck as an alternative deck to Rising Nova for Spike Brothers. All this while Rising Nova has been carrying our clan, and even though I wouldn't say Dudley Emperor is as strong as Rising Nova, it can still steal games here and there because of how explosive it can be. I'll be uploading gameplays for this deck soon, so that you guys can see how I play with this deck. So do keep a lookout for them. They'll be coming out very soon, and I'll see you guys very soon in those videos. For now, bye guys. Thank you guys so much for watching.